Hey Rangers fans, we are here today with Morgan Barron, who signed with us just a few weeks ago, right before the return to play started. So first off, thanks for chatting with us today, Morgan, and congrats on the contract.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So I know it probably feels like a long time coming for some of our fans to see you make this step, but for you, just what does it feel like to kind of finally be in this position, finally be making this leap? Just what are the emotions surrounding it?
I was really emotional. I mean, first and foremost, I was just really happy. I was lucky to sign it when I was with my family back home, and just to kind of be able to reflect on my whole career with them and look back on it, and it just made me really grateful for all the sacrifices they've made. And in the past few weeks since then, I think it's really just been excitement. It's definitely a weird time for it all to be happening. Like I would love to know the concrete date when training camp is going to start, but I mean, my fingers are crossed that things get going there in November when they're slated for right now. And then, as that kind of date inches closer and closer, I'm just getting more and more excited. I miss hockey a lot right now, so it's been fun, but I'm ready to get back on the ice for good.
Awesome. So can you kind of take us through your decision-making process and just what went into you finally deciding to make this leap and sign that contract?
Yeah, like everything else in the world right now, I think it was pretty complex. I know when our season got canceled there and in March, it was pretty disappointing because I think my ultimate goal coming to Cornell was that I wanted to kind of be able to win to some extent. And, I think we've done a good job. We've won a few Ivy League titles and such, but, I think we all kind of had a bigger goal in mind. That was winning our league this year and then going on and winning a national championship. So, it was pretty disappointing when that happened, but pretty quickly after everything got shut down, I traveled home and sat down with my family and kind of took some time to think things over. And, I guess the process got pretty dragged out because, there was a 4-month period without anything really going on. I was trying to get a better idea of what would happen with college hockey next year, what would happen, at the AHL level, at the NHL level. So it was an interesting process, but at the end of the day, I just felt like I was ready to take the step to the next level. I was really excited to do it with New York. I know ever since they drafted me, it's been my goal to be able to sign that contract with them. So once I had that all figured out, I think, like I mentioned before, it was just really exciting for me, and I'm really looking forward to getting started.
So I did want to ask you about what things were like back in March when everything started to shut down. I know it probably feels like forever ago at this point, but just what did that feel like for you, kind of knowing that it might be one of your last, if not your last, chances to have that experience at Cornell? How much did that factor into your emotions, and just how difficult was it with all the uncertainty and all the unknown?
Yeah, that was the most difficult part of it for sure. Back in March, it was crazy. I had never experienced anything like it. I don't think I ever will again. I really hope not. And I tried to keep in mind that as much as it sucked for us to lose all those things, to lose the chance to compete, there's a lot of people out there who are losing a lot more. So in the big picture, that was kind of what I tried to keep in mind. But as I've reflected on it, it really is unfortunate that we lost that situation. I know our team was really playing well at the time. I know the last game we played was actually our senior night against Clarkson. So at that point, we had no idea anything was going to happen. I think things were moving along pretty normally in life at that time. But looking back on it, I still told, my parents after the game. I remember talking to them, telling them I think that was like the most complete, best game that we've played as a team in my 3 years here. And I was just so excited to get started with playoffs because I felt like our chances were really good this year. So that was probably rubbing salt in the wound a little bit just because of how things were shaping up at the time. But nonetheless, I think the season was so much fun and successful on so many levels for the team and for myself that looking back on it, it'll be mostly positive memories.
Awesome. So knowing that at some point you will be back on the ice, don't know when, but it's going to happen. Just what are you looking forward to the very most about finally getting going again?
Well, the next opportunity I get to play in a game, I know that's kind of the main thing I'm looking forward to. And I know there's obviously hockey being played on TV, and that's been great for us to watch and kind of keep up with, and practicing and those things are good to kind of keep you busy during the summer. But there's just something about being able to go on the ice and compete with a group of teammates that's really fun. And then the other part of that is being around your teammates. With a lot of the social distancing protocols. It's been tough to get in rinks, and thankfully that's starting to change. But just to be around the dressing room and be with your friends and kind of get to compete on the ice, but then enjoy each other's company off the ice. That's something that I think I'm really missing right now.
So you've been to a few development camps with the Rangers. Can you just kind of talk to us about what those have been like and just the relationships you've been able to form, not just with other prospects, but with some of the Rangers coaching staff, some of the training staff, just how beneficial have those experiences been for you, especially coming into this next step where you're already a little bit familiar with some of what you're going to see at this level?
Yeah, I think the development camps have been huge just for getting comfortable. I mean, I hadn't spent much time in the New York area, so having the opportunity to come down there once a summer and get on the ice and kind of get to know everyone, like you said, but also just to get familiar with the area was always really cool for me. That was a highlight of my summer. And then to get to go down and tour MSG and see the practice facility and really take that time under summer and be treated like a pro, as everyone is in New York, I think that was really exciting for me. And, it's something I'm going to be missing this summer for sure. And of course, the relationships. I mean, with the other prospects, I think it's great to get to know them and kind of discuss your different experiences in hockey and, and build those friendships. Because I think at the end of the day, we all want to be playing in New York together at some point. And then the coaching staff, I mean, the whole staff really is awesome to be around them. And like I said, the coaches, you get on the ice with them and kind of get a feel for how they like to run a team. But even more so than that, I think of guys like Jed Ordemeyer and Tanner Glass, who I've had a ton of contact with over the past few years. And those are guys who both spent some time playing college hockey, and to be able to kind of share their experiences and hear about, what they went through playing college hockey. I think that's been huge for me as a person and as a player, just to understand what they've went through and kind of apply their own experiences to what I'm going through at the moment.
So given kind of the circumstances under which last season ended, knowing you haven't, I don't know if you spent any time on the ice, but you probably haven't spent as much as you'd like to. Just what are your honest expectations for yourself going into next season, given all that's going to be new, given all the time off?
Yeah.
Just what are your honest expectations?
It's a good question. I mean, I haven't thought too much about it. I've actually been pretty lucky. I've been able to get on the ice a fair amount, pretty much normal compared to most summers. I know when I went back home to Halifax, they did a pretty good job getting the whole coronavirus situation under control. So I was really lucky to get on the ice. But since then, I mean, it's just kind of been a summer, about as normal as you could expect it to be in the circumstances. So, I mean, my expectations are probably the same as if none of this happened. I mean, I'm just going to want to go into camp and try to compete for a spot in the team, and wherever I end up, I'll be happy to be there and just happy to be out and playing hockey again. I know, like anybody who signs a contract, I think they all want to make the team as soon as possible, and I'm no exception to that. I want to be in the NHL like anyone else, but regardless, I think I'm just excited to get it going, and wherever things end up, that's going to be the case. I'm not too worried about it.
Awesome. So thinking about your journey from your draft year to right now, just overall, can you just talk about your growth and have you surprised yourself with what you've accomplished? Is what you accomplished what you expected? Just how do you kind of assess the whole experience from then to now?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think it's been a pretty interesting process. I know coming to Cornell, I wasn't really sure what to expect, especially from the school. Like, I wasn't sure how that would go. I was a little bit younger than some of the kids in my class, so I wasn't sure how that would go. But I mean, in terms of the friendships I made, I think that's the first thing that sticks out to me. I've gotten along so well with so many of my friends and teammates. So that's been so beneficial, I think, just to be around such great people. And I think that's translated over into the ice as well. I know just being around so many great guys, you want to compete for each other and play hard for each other. So that's been awesome. On the ice, I think my main concern coming here, something I really wanted to focus on, was trying to be someone who could play in any situation. And as a freshman, I didn't really have the opportunity to penalty kill. I wasn't someone who was on the ice at the end of the game, whether we were down a goal, up or goal. And then since then, I think I've really worked into that position where this year I was one of the first guys who was getting called on. And, that was something I was really proud of. I was someone who was able to play on the wing, play center, penalty kill, power play at the end of the game, play big minutes if I needed to. So I think that's kind of been the one thing that I'm really grateful the coaching staff has helped me work towards, is that I've been able to kind of build my game and try to work on all my weaknesses and mend them out, because I know at the next level it's going to be a lot tougher to compete in a lot of those areas. So it was definitely a slow experience. I think that I've been able to work all the way through this over the past 3 years, but I've enjoyed all of it. And I think it's worked out really well for me.
Awesome. All right, last question from me before we get into the fan questions.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at what the Rangers were able to accomplish this past year and the roles that some rookies and really young players were able to play in their success, does that send any kind of message to you about an opportunity that you might have on a young team that's really looking to its youth to really make an impact and do big things?
Absolutely, for sure. I know when I sat down and talked to my parents, that was one of the main things. I mean, for myself, even without the connections I have with the Rangers, I think they're one of the most fun teams to watch in the NHL right now. And I think most of my teammates could echo that. My family would probably echo that, like with all the talent they have around them, and specifically the young talent. They're just a ton of fun to watch. And I think everybody knows that there's going to be some big things in the future, and everyone's excited about that. So, it's been tough to watch in a certain sense for the past 3 years, because I wanted to be a part of it as soon as possible. And now to be able to be a part of it and have so many exciting things going on in the organization, it's pretty neat. And I mean, it only adds on top of that with the first overall pick now coming and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely exciting, and to see the roles that some of the younger players have been able to fill. It's definitely a position that I can hopefully see myself in soon.
Awesome. All right, our first fan question comes from Justin, and he wants to know, what is it like to become a part of an Original Six organization?
It's pretty cool. I mean, seeing the history of the New York Rangers, and it specifically sticks out to me when we would tour MSG, and you could see all the retired jerseys, all the memorabilia around the locker room. It's just really exciting. You get goosebumps whenever you think about it. Especially in a city like New York. I mean, there's no city like New York in the world. So with all the history the team has, I think the winning culture there, and especially, like I mentioned before, the timing of it all. I know everyone's really anxious to hopefully raise another cup someday soon. And, my goal is to be a part of that.
Okay, Luke wants to know, who was your favorite player growing up?
Growing up, probably Sidney Crosby, being from the Halifax area and seeing everything he's done. He's a ton of fun to watch, and obviously to see a lot of those cup runs that the Penguins went on as well. I mean, I think most kids from Halifax would probably have the same answer, or Nova Scotia at all. I mean, on the ice, he's obviously an awesome player, and I think off the ice too. You hardly ever hear a bad thing about him, if ever. So definitely someone who I can look up to.
Cool. Chris wants to know, how would you describe yourself as a player, and what is your biggest strength?
I would describe myself as a two-way power forward. I think I'm someone who can play at both ends of the ice. I love to compete. I love to play in games, and I love to win. I think those are the three main things probably about myself as a player. And my biggest strength probably would be trying to use my size to my advantage. I was a little bit smaller when I was younger, and then I hit a growth spurt coming up through midget. And ever since then, I've tried to remind myself that I should never take advantage of my size or be afraid to use it. So I've tried to do that, and I think I've added a lot of that to my game over the past 3 years in terms of puck protection and being able to take pucks to the net, and adding some layers of physicality to my game.
If you had to compare your style of play to one NHL player, which player would you choose?
Ooh, that's a good question. Growing up, I remember going to a lot of major junior games and seeing guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois play, and I think he's someone who's over the past few years taken a couple of huge steps and kind of accelerated himself into that role. But in terms of body type, I think that's kind of a player that I can aspire to play like.
Lou has a technical question. Do you prefer to play center or wing?
I think when I first came to Cornell, that was kind of an interesting point, because I'd been playing center the prior 2 years of that in prep school. But to be completely honest, I really am indifferent to the two. I felt like this year I kind of played a hybrid where positionally I was lined up on the wing in our own zone, but I would take faceoffs quite often on the power play and the penalty kill, and at the end of games sometimes. So I'm pretty flexible between the two. I know I got slated on the wing when I came to Cornell, mostly because we just had a lot of people who wanted to play center, and I felt equally comfortable playing both. So I'm pretty open between the two.
Awesome. Who is your favorite player on the current Rangers team, if you had to pick one?
Ooh, I think probably the most fun to watch would be Panarin. I know obviously he's had a tremendous year. And in my opinion, is probably the MVP of the league. I'm not sure when the voting will come out, but I think he's had a really spectacular year. And like I said before, the Rangers are a lot of fun to watch. I think he's a huge part of that.
Okay, I like this question. It's from Kat. In past Rangers camps, which defenseman has been the hardest to go up against?
Oh God, there's a ton of them. I don't know if I can pick. I know Keandre and Nils are both pretty impressive to watch. I know in their own zone, they're really tough to get around, but also the things they do with the puck coming out of the zone. And then last year, obviously, Adam Fox was there, and he's someone who I got pretty familiar with playing against him in college a lot. So he's also someone who I would much rather have on my team than be playing against. Hard to pick one.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Okay, Samantha wants to know, what is your favorite memory from Cornell?
There's so many. Well, the one that sticks out to me most is probably my freshman year. I know we beat Harvard 3-2 at home, and we scored on the power play with, it was like 1.2 seconds left or something like that. So that was pretty cool for me. And I think especially in the eyes of the students, Harvard's probably their biggest rival. And that time they were ranked like top 5 in the country, and our season was just getting started. It was kind of one of my first experiences playing college hockey, and just to see how excited everybody was, how loud the building was at the time. It was pretty cool. That's something that I'll always remember.
Okay, Sophia wants to know, what has been your favorite quarantine activity?
I've been trying to learn how to cook, so that's been interesting. I set the fire alarm off a couple too many times, but especially when I was home with my mom, I was trying to get in the kitchen a little bit more and grow up a little bit and try to cook my own meals. So that was fun, and I've gotten a lot better over the few months that I've kind of been laying low at home.
Nice. That's a solid quarantine activity.
Yeah, I felt productive. So.
So one of our followers found a video on YouTube of you doing some summer training with some pretty notable NHL players out in Halifax. Can you just tell us a little bit about what the experience was like for you to be able to train with some of those guys, and who were they also?
Yeah, well, I think one of the cool parts about Nova Scotia in general is that for such a small province, there's so many good hockey players from there. And you look at, it was like Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon, Brad Marchand, and then a handful of other guys who are in the NHL right now or AHL who are doing really well. And I remember being a kid, and you're trying to hang around the rink long enough and hope that those guys happen to show up and are practicing at some point in the summer, and you get to watch. And then to have the opportunity to go train with them and see the way they practice over the summers, it was really cool. And just like I said, as a kid, you grow up watching them. I remember watching them on TV a ton, and still seeing how they're all the two of them, Brad and Nate, are doing so well in the playoffs right now. It's pretty cool to get on the ice with them. And I think I took a lot away from that, seeing how competitive they were. Even in the middle of July and August, they're going a million miles an hour out there and not taking any time off. And that kind of stretch from the top end guys who are out there to the guys who are just trying to break into the league, and see that consistency. I think that taught me a lot about what it means to be an NHL player.
Awesome. Okay, Anthony wants to know, what have you learned about Rangers fans since being drafted by this organization?
Very passionate. I think that's probably a pretty consistent message, but I remember my phone blowing up the first day after being drafted, and playing prep school hockey, we never really played in front of huge fans. I mean, we had some students and such at the game, but I expected for me to be a 6th-round pick, not to really be bothered too much, but it was made pretty clear to me pretty quickly that the fans were super passionate and were pulling for me as much as possible. So that was really awesome to see. And then the odd time I run into someone around campus who happens to cheer for the Rangers and also comes to our games, I mean, that's really cool. They're all super passionate. I know I've repeated that word a few times, but everyone's really excited to hopefully get another cup raise there and have a lot of winning seasons coming up.
Love it. Okay, last question here. What is the best piece of advice that you've gotten in your career so far? If you need to take a moment, you can.
Yeah, I may need to take a quick second. I know one of the main things that I talked about with my dad a lot was not to get too high, not to get too low. I think it's so easy in a game like hockey. You're not going to have a full game of perfect shifts. You're not going to have a full season of perfect games. And that was probably something I struggled with a little bit, especially, coming into college, was that, you have a bad game on Friday night and all of a sudden you're playing again Saturday night. You can't really let that affect your mindset or affect the way you play. And I know that's the importance of kind of having that even keel attitude is probably just going to be elevated at the next level because you're playing so many more games. So once I was able to kind of figure that out, and I think that helped my game quite a bit, and not getting too emotionally upset or too happy, and just trying to play that same game and go out and treat every shift as kind of an independent opportunity to go out and play the game I love.
Good stuff. Okay, Morgan, thank you so much for doing this. I know our fans will be super pumped to hear from you. So thank you for doing that, and hopefully we'll see you in New York soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.